everyone, and welcome to our opening night of Unexpected Productions Fact or Fiction, our storytelling and improvised storytelling show. I guess it's all storytelling, our true story and our improvised storytelling show. Normally, we'd be inviting you into Pike Place Market in Seattle, behind the gum wall. You go down the dark alley, you'd worry about touching the wall and maybe getting tuberculosis, and then you'd enter our theater, a place I love, and which I miss because, as you may have noticed, the last year has been a little crazy and there aren't a lot of live performances going on. So we kind of started talking about what we like, and one of the things we have a lot of around our theater is storytellers. If you're at the theater late at night, there are a lot of stories. Some of them very moving, some of them very funny, some of them very drunk if you're there late at night enough. But regardless, there's tons of storytellers around the theater, and not just our performers, our audience. One of my favorite things to do is hang out in the lobby before or after a show and talk to audience members and find out what's going on. Seattle's kind of one of those nexus places that people from all over the world come in. So we thought, let's play with story. Let's explore story for a few weeks and take advantage of something we can do on Zoom. We can bring people in from around the world, and we can share stories with people from around the world. Again, both true ones and ones we're going to make up on the spot, because fact and fiction has both. We've invited 3 storytellers tonight who are going to tell true stories, and we've invited 3 improvisers who are going to have to make up stories and try to win points. A very serious competition. The rewards for which are amazing and mostly verbal. So thank you for being part of this show. And without waiting any longer, I'm going to bring out some of our storytellers. So I'm going to start with our improvising. Yep. Yeah, you can all come out. I'll just bring you all out. There we go. I'm going to start with our improvisers. So why don't you wave when I introduce you? We have Liz Bramer. We have Eliza Fermansky. We have Shannon Bass. And on music down there, we have Jason DeLeo. This is down there for me. So Zoom always mixes us all up. Those are our improvisers. They're going to have to make up stories on the spot based on our theme, which we'll introduce in a minute. But before that, we have 3 true storytellers telling true stories from their lives. Opening up, we have Rich Hawkins. We have Leona Partridge, and we have Belinda Fu. All of you, I believe, are from Seattle, or most of the time. Some of you have been around the world a few times recently. Some of you have been in Seattle for a year. So thank you all for being here. Because you're our true storytellers, you're telling our true stories, we're going to have you judge the improvised stories tonight, because these improvisers are making it up on the spot. We're going to make it challenging on them. And they're going to do them in pairs. So we have 3 judges. We have Rich, you are going to serve as our thematic judge tonight. Does it meet the theme? And the theme is wintertime, if you haven't seen it. So is it a story that's really about winter time? Leona, you are going to be judging the challenge. Each of these stories is going to have a challenge, so they can't prepare their story ahead of time. And so that we know that they're improvising, and to make it a little harder on them. You're going to judge, did they meet that challenge? Did they completely abandon the challenge in order to tell a good story? Or what? Speaking of good story, Belinda is our story judge. And did she like the story? Did it maybe, it's kind of up to her whether she wants to apply critical theory, or whether she just wants to sit back, have a drink, and tell us how much did she enjoy this story. So 3 judges tonight to keep track of how those stories went. Our theme, as I mentioned, is wintertime. And so I thought we'd just talk about wintertime for a couple minutes. And my first question is just going to be, who likes wintertime and who does not?
I'm the only one.
Well, I think it depends on where I am for wintertime. So
I love it. I love snow. I love being cold. I love winter sports. I love cocoa. I love the holidays. I love it all.
This winter has been kind of grim. I feel like I'm locked up in a prison here. It's
You got to go outside. You got to get gear.
I wish I could.
Yeah, I have to say, I couldn't stand winter until I was in my 20s, and I found out there were such things as snow boots and Gore-Tex and snow pants. My family didn't raise me doing that. We would put plastic bags over our tennis shoes for the winter. And so when I was in my 20s and I had friends that took me shopping, I love winter now. I got my gear. I'm good.
When I learned to ski, it made a whole difference.
Amen to that. Yeah. When I moved to Seattle, because I moved from California where it like rains in the winter, but it's not, cold. It's not cold and there's no snow. So when I moved here, I was like, okay, well, when in Rome, I'm going to do the things that cold people do. And so, yeah, learning to snowboard was really fun and just getting out in it. But Liz, I don't like being cold. I feel like there's not enough gear in the world to like keep my.
I don't like being hot, and you can be totally without any gear at all, if you know what I mean, and you're still hot. You can't end the hot.
You run out of layers to take off.
Yeah.
I do like winter fashion, like boots with the fur and like the long coats. That's fun.
Yeah, you're a boot person. Like one of the things COVID has taken from us is I only see the top half of you. So I miss like Belinda's parade of boots when winter arrives.
I miss my boots too.
Yeah. And I think Belinda has the most beautiful snow hat. The Turkish snow hat. I don't know if it's in your closet there. You can pull it out sometime during the story. Beautiful.
That was one of the stories I was thinking of telling is actually that hat story, but
the winter of 2014-15 in Western Mongolia, where the temperature got down to -20 at night. I had a $500 sleeping bag I took with me, and it was my best friend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Liza, you mentioned it depends on where you are. Where's a good winter place and where's a bad winter place?
Well, I like winter places where there's blue skies. Okay. So it can be really cold. And yeah, then you can gear up. You can have awesome hats and sleeping bags and whatever. But the gray is like, I have a hard time with the gray because also bright skies you can make darker because you can wear sunglasses or go inside. But with the gray, you can't really brighten up the world as much. So Milwaukee was too cold. Colorado was pretty perfect. And then of course you can also take winter sun breaks. So last winter I went to Tulum and that was an amazing place to be in the winter.
Shannon, you've kept your cards close. Winter, yay or nay?
I'm nay on winter, and I'm also nay on winter fashion, which is probably my main issue, is that I refuse to dress appropriately still, because it gets in the way of my aesthetic. So
it's good. Defy the season. So. Awesome. Well, thank you all for your thoughts on winter. We're going to get a lot more, maybe not thoughts, maybe experiences as we tell some stories about winter. So Rich Hawkins has our first story tonight. So Rich, why don't you take it away?
Okay. Well, this winter, actually just a week ago, the world lost one of its greatest actors. You probably know, Cicely Tyson passed away. And because I heard an interview with her on the radio, I realized that she and I actually had something in common that I didn't know about before. We were both born with heart murmurs. In her case, the doctors gave her 3 months to live when she was born. She ended up dying at 96, which I thought showed them so much for doctors, Belinda. And in my case, the prognosis was, I never knew because my family never spoke about it. Only once when I was little, about 4 or 5, my older sister leaned over and said, "You have a heart murmur." And I realized, it's something important, but I never knew what it meant because no one spoke about it. And I never asked. It stayed with me through my life. Every once in a while, a doctor would be, sounds like you had a heart murmur in there. And I'd say, yeah, I've had it since I was a kid. No big deal, I guess. And that was it. And then a few years ago, a cardiologist actually explained to me what was going on. See, when your heart muscle squeezes, a valve opens that lets blood come out into your aorta and the rest of your body. And then when it relaxes, the valve closes. In my case, though, this 3-leaf valve, 2 of the leaves are kind of blended together or connected like webbed toes. So when my valve closed, it didn't close completely, and some of the blood leaked back into my heart. And you could hear that leaking on a stethoscope, and that's a heart murmur. Now, it's not the worst problem in the world, but it can affect your circulation and how efficient it is. And I learned that helps explain why, as a kid growing up, I was such a terrible athlete. My neighborhood kids all beat me, everybody, boys, even the girls. It was just awful. And to top it off, I had one other birth defect. This left eye was crossed, and it was not until I was 5 before they figured out how to sort of make it straight. And by that time, my brain had learned only to accept one eye at a time. So I never had triangulation, binocular vision, depth perception. So it's not a big handicap. The 3D movies are a big deal for me, that's all. And I think maybe things like shooting baskets and hitting baseballs are a little harder. But anyway, I was a terrible athlete. I think a good day for me was when I was not the last kid chosen to be on a team. And baseball particularly was tough. We had a vacant lot right next to the house I grew up in, and all the neighborhood kids played baseball there. And I think one of the worst, most humiliating days of my childhood was my 6th birthday, when my aunt bought me a baseball suit. I remember standing in the kitchen. I'm about as tall as the ironing board, and she's there ironing these felt letters onto the front and back, my name and Salem Senators, and she's laughing and talking to my mom. Everybody's feeling good, and I can see this iron going back and forth. And the dread is just building and building inside me, because I know as soon as she's finished, I'm going to have to put that shirt on, go out the kitchen door, and face those neighborhood kids. Well, I did it, and it was as I expected. They first said, "Richie, look at Richie." And then they laughed at me, and I spent the rest of the day playing on the side of the field in the mud and the rocks. I've forgiven my aunt for buying me that baseball suit. I've raised 3 boys of my own. I have 8 grandchildren now. It's tough for an adult to find a gift that's right for a child, that the child appreciates, right? But one Christmas, my family hit the mark. My dad bought me a snow sled. Now, in the 50s, the standard kid snow sled was 3 pieces of wood attached together with a little piece underneath, and that was attached to a metal runner that raised it about 5 or 6 inches off the ground. And on the front was kind of a wooden handle you could move back and forth. It was attached to the runners and would bend them either left or right, so you could steer this snow sled. It was called the Flexible Flyer. Now, the sled my dad bought me was built like that, but better. It was lower. It was longer. That made it more aerodynamic. It was darker, kind of sexy. And the amazing thing was that instead of connecting the wood to the runners, metal to wood, it had these metal springs along both sides, like shock absorbers. So you could run with that sled, throw it down on the snow, flop on it, and go. It was the fastest sled in the neighborhood by far. No questions asked. I beat everybody. To borrow a phrase, I got tired of winning. Kids who used to beat me at everything, who used to beat me up, would say, "Hey, Richie, you mind? Sure, Jimmy, go ahead, have a run. Joe, Steve, go ahead, have some fun." I think until I was in high school, winter was my favorite season. because we didn't get a lot of snow in Salem, Oregon, but we got some snow days almost every year. And those snow days were my best days. Now, 20, 30 years from now, after I'm gone, I don't think you're going to hear many interviews with me on NPR. And it's sure that nobody is going to make a movie based on the last word that I speak. But damn it, I loved that sled.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay.
Awesome.
Or Richie. I think it's time now for us to improvise a story. So I'm gonna start with Liz and Eliza, and we're gonna do a I'll tell you what, I'm gonna give you each what feels like a wintry sounding consonant to me. And in this story, you're gonna have to use that consonant as much as possible. So Liz, I'm gonna give you ch, like CH.
Okay.
And Eliza, I'm gonna give you s, like just S. Yeah. Nice snow sounds. So so that's the challenge of this story is your characters just use those sounds as much as you can. Great. Good luck.
Okay. It was the most snow I've ever had in Chicago. A very snowy city. It was the most snow that Chicago had ever.
It wasn't just how much snow there was, it was how cold it was. So that winter when I was riding my bike around, one day my eyelashes actually froze open and I couldn't close my eyes. So then I started wearing ski goggles when I rode my bike around.
Charlene wore those ski goggles not only in that cold, snowiest winter that Chicago had seen. She wore them to school. She wore them everywhere. She chose to wear those goggles as much as she possibly could. It was one of the first things I noticed about her.
One of the first things that I noticed about Chica was she didn't care about dressing appropriately for a snowy winter in Chicago. Oh no. Chica showed up in tank tops and said that she didn't even feel the cold. She said that she just naturally had a blue tint to her skin.
Choices are something that we all make. We all choose the reality in which we live. And I never believed it like I did that year that I met the snow in Chicago. I chose the most aesthetically pleasing outfits I could, and I made them work for me. And
Chica not only chose that outfit, she sewed it herself.
I chose literally every part of the outfit.
What I loved the most was the sewing and then also the embellishments. This was in the glory days of puff paint. And she also put little tiny mirrors everywhere. So it was before bedazzling.
The best thing I did and how I knew we were going to be friends for the rest of our lives was I looked her straight in the eye and I said, I'm going to puff paint those glasses.
And she did.
I did.
She did. So she actually put puffy paint going around the headband and inset little mirrors along the way so that when people looked at me, they could see themselves as well, but not just one of themselves, so many different parts of themselves.
All kinds of reflections. I could see how I was doing. She could see how she was doing. Everyone could see how they were doing. And when I looked into those goggles, into the reflection of myself and those little tiny mirrors and those little tiny sequins, and in her eyes, I knew this was a place where I could really be myself. You know, I could build my character. I could overcome reality itself. I know that sounds crazy. That's what we do all the time.
We overcome reality because that's what you have to do in the winter in Chicago because it's cold, it's dark, there is snow everywhere. When you're waiting for the train to come, you don't even think you're gonna make it without like being covered in frostbite by the time you get on the train. But
Buried, houses are buried, cars, animals.
so I wanted to give Chica something back because she had made me look amazing. And I knew that she was overcoming winter while wearing like tank tops and mini skirts. And I knew she was cold. She didn't want to admit that she was cold, but I knew she was cold. So for Valentine's Day that year, I bought 200 hand warmers and put them in everything she owned.
I basically made a double layer tank top with lots of pockets in between the layers for all of the hand warmers that I got for Valentine's Day.
So no one really knew how Chica managed to stay warm in her like summer dresses in the winter in Chicago.
No one knew but my best friend.
Yay! Yahoo!
All right, that was our first improvised story of the night, completely made up. So I'm going to bring our true storytellers out to do what we do with stories, which is judge them harshly. We have 3 judges, as I mentioned. We've named what they are. So, Rich, from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, how do you judge the theme? Did they hit winter time?
They hit it better than I did. You know, they were there from the beginning to the end. But perfect. No, I can't say it's perfect. It's not universally applicable. So I'm going to step back from that 5 and give them a 4.
All right, a 4. Okay. Leona, the challenge was to use some sounds of winter and how did they meet that challenge?
Yeah. So boy, winter is harsh, and so am I. I'm gonna say they both use a lot of S. I'd say Chicago stood out for me for a chip.
Yeah.
And then a lot of S's, and I felt like the chip was hard. I think that was a hard word to find a lot of sounds in, but they both equally did a lot with S, and so I'm going to give them a 3 because that was an equal effort. They both did well.
All right, that's very you're very kind and harsh.
Am I?
Mistress.
Harsh.
Yeah. And Belinda, you're just judging the story. What'd you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3.
3.
Yeah.
Right in the middle.
I like the friendship.
All right.
And the pockets.
Well, that brings Chicago to 10 points. So we'll leave it there. We've got 2 more improvised stories on their way in this hour. So we'll see how they line up. But next, Leona, you're going to share a story with us, I believe.
Yes, I am. And yeah, winter. Just check. So it was Snowmageddon in 2012, and we were erupted with the news of Snow Day. As my husband and I heard the news, we gleefully went and woke up our children. And that's the best thing you want to tell your children on a winter's day. It's a snow day. You don't have to go to school. They were equally delighted. And I remember we came out to the patio, stood there and just listened to the silence and also the sound of the snow as it hit the ground and the pitter patter of snow like angels touching their wings to the ground. It was gorgeous. And then we opened the blinds and watched as the snow accumulates, and it goes from 2 inches to 4 inches. Yeah, they canceled school with 2 inches of snow, but it did continue to accumulate. I think we had 10 or 12 inches that year. And as the snow accumulated, my husband David, who's equally very playful, joined our children. We gathered all of the gear from the basement, the boots, the gloves, the snow bibs, the pants, the coats, and brought them all upstairs. They're scattered all over the floor and everyone's putting them on. And the three of them, their job is to go out and play in the snow as mightily as they can. And they did. They got cold, they got wet. They took all of the snow in our yard and packed it into the stairs that lead from the sidewalk up to our front door. And so they virtually created a ramp, and this ramp was all snow packed into all the steps and then the landing, so that they could literally walk out the door, put the sled down, and slide from our house front door into the street of Woodland Park Avenue. And that was safe because the street was empty. There were no cars, no buses, no people, maybe a random, cross-country skier, but the streets were empty and they could just slide and go into it. And the ramp was dangerous and it was delightful and they were loving it. And as they did that, I was doing my job inside as the mom, making the best cocoa in the world. And so they would spend the day outside, get soaking wet. I'd go out, maybe do a run or two, and then we'd all come in, dry up, and do it all again at night. So that's where the crux of my story occurs. It was at night. We had just gone for a big night walk through the town and came back home. And as we were approaching the house, looking up, my daughter Josie and my son Bryce were with David, and they appear distraught as they look up at the stairs, and where the two sleds, those two toboggans that they had used magically on those ramps all day, were gone. The place was void. It was empty. There was no sleds. And I remember my sweet little daughter just yelling, "The sleds are gone!" David, who was searching wildly around the yard, on the street, looking, could he find them? Maybe they had just fallen. They had slipped. We had so many people at the house. Maybe somebody borrowed them and was just playing with them. No, we couldn't find them. So like little greyhounds, my two children started looking in the snow. And all of a sudden, Josie pointed with her finger, "Tracks!" And truly there were footprints and long lines of those sleds that were dragged behind those tracks. And that's when I saw the transformation in my husband. He went from that playful, loving father to a superhero detective. And he said to me, "Get the cocoa ready. We're going to come back. We're going to have those sleds." And I believed him. So I went inside and I waited and watched. I looked out the window in case somebody may return with our sleds, or maybe somebody was actually, casing the house and was going to steal more than the sled. So I stayed there. In the meantime, David, Josie, and Bryce walked to Woodland Park Avenue, just a few blocks away. Now, Woodland Park Avenue is like a magical playground in the snow. When it snows, people come out from the neighborhoods, from the children to the grandparents, the nannies, the fathers, the mothers. Everybody's out there sledding all day. It's like a Norman Rockwell painting. And even at night, with the moon on the snow, it's glorious. So this was late at night. It was maybe 11:30 at night. David, Josie, and Bryce are all tracking those footsteps, tracking the dragging sleds into the snow. They finally get there, and they're waiting. They split up. Bryce was on one side, David and Josie are on the other. They're on each side of the hill, looking down for anything that moves, anyone or anything coming up that hill they were going to see. They chose to make a signal. The signal was, and I guess it worked, because as they were there, illuminated in the snow, they could see the figure of two people coming up the fog through the snow, dragging these two sleds. David looked at Bryce. Bryce gave him the nod, and they approached. And that's when my husband threw off his papa gloves and his winter gear, and he put on his Superman cape. And he walked right up to those two people, one male, one female, young yuppies in their 20s, laughing gloriously as if they had every right to deserve sledding on that hill that day. And he says to them, "Hey, did you get those sleds at the house down the street?" And they say, "Yeah." And she laughs and says, "We were just going to borrow them for a little bit. We're going to bring them back, I promise." And he says, "Yeah? Well, those are my kids' sleds. And I will take them now." And with one sudden swoop of his arms, he grabbed both sleds out of their hands and stood there. And he said, "Now, I want you to know, I'm a father and I teach my children right from wrong. And I've taught them it's not right to take things from someone without asking their permission. That's exactly what you've done." Their mouths were open and ashamed, and I think they were on a date because he looked at her like, and my husband said, "I want you to apologize to my children now." And the woman just broke down and said, "Oh, we're so sorry. We don't usually do this. We're sorry. We were going to bring him back. We promise." And the guy said, "Yeah, we're sorry." And with that, David said, "Thank you." And he walked away, and his Superman cape blew in the wind, and they walked up to the top of the hill, and the midnight moon was glistening on the snow, and they got on those sleds and they rode them all the way down to the bottom. They walked back to the house, gloriously smiling, laughing. And they walked into the door, and I said, "How'd it go?" And he said, "We've got our sleds." And I could see the little Clark Kent inside of him was giggling with glee, and I handed him his cocoa and said, "Well done." And from that day on, whenever somebody asks our children, "Do you have a story when someone saved the day or was kind of a hero?" they tell the story about my husband, David, and the day they tracked down the sled stealers.
Thank you, Leona.
2012.
If I want to say this to our audience, and I've been enjoying our audience's comments. We have a Chicago audience member. We have an audience member of the Heart Murmur. They may even be the same person. So if you're out there listening to this, maybe you're listening to it in the audience live. Maybe it's been recorded and you're listening to it afterwards. If you want to do this, I want to call out my co-director for the show, Kent Whipple, who's an amazing storyteller. He's told stories all around the country. He's won awards with names like Body and Story in them. That's BAWDY, but I would believe he's won the other type of Body award as well. You have a chance, if you're interested in learning to tell personal stories and to bring a lot of yourself into those stories. He teaches a class, and we have another one coming up in March. It starts March 14th. They're online. It's like a couple of hours. I think it tends to be on I think it's Sundays. Totally recommend it. My partner Janine has been taking the class, and she's like in a great mood after the class every week, and I'm super jealous because I was not able to take the class this time. So check that out if you get a chance. We also have tons of improv classes, stuff like that going on. So all on our website, unexpectedproductions.org. And we bring in storytellers from around the world too to teach workshops, things like that. There's always something going on, always a chance to learn. Thank you, Leona. It's time for another improvised challenge. This is going to be Liza and Shannon. Here's the challenge I think I'm going to give you is we're going to do it. We have a lot of transfer games in improv, like status transfer is one where one person starts high status, one person starts low status. Shannon, at the start of the story, it's going to be summer. It's going to be physically summer. Maybe the story doesn't mean it has to be summer, but you are all summer. And Eliza, you're going to be all winter. And throughout the story, I want us to see that it has physically switched places for the two of you by the time you get to the end of your story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Theme is wintertime. Take it away.
For winter, I recommend doing it in Hawaii.
Sorry, can you say that one more time? What are we doing in Hawaii?
I'm just saying, like, winter comes every year, no matter where you are. So you might as well go to where the sun is, right? So that's what we did. I said, let's go to Hawaii, right? You can choose where you go in the winter, but you can't choose winter.
I don't really like traveling very much. I don't like packing. I don't like feeling the stress and the anxiety about traveling. I don't like buying airplane tickets. I don't like being stuck on a plane.
Yeah.
I get really bad motion sickness. And so at first I really, really, really tried to convince Sammy to just stay home, you know, like we could just stay home. We could just Netflix and chill.
Stacy makes me do all the planning every time we go anywhere, right? And so a lot of times we end up just staying home and Netflix and chilling, but I wasn't gonna do that this time. If I have to go through winter, we are going to Hawaii. So I booked everything. I booked us accommodations. I booked us the plane tickets. I even booked us the medicine she needs for when she gets sick. I had everything covered. It was gonna be the best Christmas ever because it wasn't gonna be white. It was gonna be a green, hilly, Kauai Christmas.
So she'd made these great plans, and I really wasn't excited about it, like at all. But I tried to be because she's my sister, and she didn't really have to spend her winter vacation with me at all. I mean,
but I wanted to.
And it had been a hard one for me. Like, just had a breakup, and he took the cats, and I just didn't really want to go anywhere and have to put a bikini on. I mean, a bikini, guys. But I did. Yeah, so the first surprise came at the airport when we got upgraded to first class.
Yeah. I had planned everything so well that when we were the first in line to get bumped, we got bumped, right? I had us covered. So we're in first class, and we have never been first class before. So that to me was a sign that this was gonna be the best trip ever, right? I really wanted to cheer Stacy up. And so we got bumped to first class. So we immediately start drinking, even though we knew she probably shouldn't with the medication she takes for not getting sick.
So yeah, we had drinks before the other people had even boarded the plane, right? Yeah, and okay, so maybe a Mai Tai was a little bit extreme.
Winning going to Hawaii.
Yeah, we had Lays. They gave us Lays. They didn't give the rest of the people Lays. And so not only that, but the flight attendant who actually gave me the lay, his name was Barry. And Barry was like the first man I had seen since John had left me that had actually, done something, like I had a fantasy.
And here's the thing about Barry. Barry was at least 6'2". He had dark brown hair. He had bright blue eyes. And he looked like he could be in like GQ modeling these flight attendant clothing he was wearing.
It wasn't even just like how he looked. It was his voice. It was this like baritone voice that was like, how do you like that lay? And I was like, I could like it better.
But here's the thing. I wanted Barry too, right? Like she had just gotten out of this relationship. She gets to be in relationships. I have never had that. Is it so wrong that I wanted it too with someone who looked like Barry? Right? She gets people all the time. She was supposed to be taking care of herself. She was supposed to be focusing on herself. I was giving her this trip as like a chance to be a distraction from like always being with people.
So then Sammy starts getting hot, like really, really hot. And she has to like take off all of her winter clothes, right? So she had to take off her hat and her wool scarf and her puffy coat and then her wool sweater and her vest. And then she even took off her long sleeved shirt and she's piling all of this clothing on top of me. And just every time she's getting up, she's doing it in front of Barry in the aisle. She goes all the way down to her crop top.
I'm not good at flirting. I was using the one thing I had at my disposal. It was the one thing I've never tried before. I was deciding to be bold. I wanted to be bold, and I wanted, people to notice.
Yeah. And the thing is,
They did.
Sammy's hot. Like, Sammy's really hot. So when Sammy got down to her crop top and she was in the aisle, this is also, she's my sister, I'll admit it, 4 Mai Tais in at this point. So they start to give the emergency instructions, right? And Sammy thinks that she can help out with this. So she jumps up in front of Barry and starts doing the moves with him, right? And kind of like leaning, like wings. And the thing is, everybody loved it in the first class. And they started like applauding for Sammy, right? And then Sammy starts getting a little bit more risque on Barry. And when she does the exits with the pilot, she grabbed his butt.
It was 4 Mai Tais. I was feeling nervous, I was like trying to give my sister a good time, and I was trying to give myself a good time. These are all just excuses. It's not okay to just like inappropriately touch people while they're working, but it's where I was at, and it was wrong, and I apologize. But Stacy, to this very moment, won't ever let me live it down.
Oh, wait, okay. I would let her live it down. It's just that by this point, I'd become a little excited about our trip because we were on board the plane. Everything had been set up. I was like, okay, let's do this. And then we had to get off of the plane because Barry told the pilot about this sexual harassment that he was experiencing in the first cabin. And we had to deplane with all of our bags and this whole heap of Sammy's clothing that I had to cart off.
And then Stacy started to get sick.
Because of the Mai Tais.
And the medication and the flight. And she was just seemed like she was releasing everything that had been inside her. Her anger with me for getting us in trouble on this flight, for me starting the trip off on the wrong foot. She just started physically releasing it.
And, sister's fight, and we hadn't actually had a good knockdown blowout for some time. And then we were escorted out of the airport.
And so we tried, to get along the rest of the trip, but she wouldn't get in her bikini. And she kept trying to shame me for always wanting to be in my bikini. But when in Hawaii?
The thing that I wish Sammy knew was that it was probably the best vacation of my entire life. Like, normally I come back from a vacation and people ask me how it was, and all I seem to be able to remember is how terrible the transportation was and the cab rides and needing to do all the planning, and it was never as good as I ever thought it would be. And this vacation, when I came home, I had stories. A very hot sister.
We could have, it's my fault, okay? I lost sight of the prize at hand, and that prize was more time with my sister who was struggling. So it was my fault because I made it about me, and I've tried to show her sense, that it doesn't always have to be about me, but I just feel like we've never gotten past it.
Hooray!
All right, one more improvised story.
Yay.
Excellent. Let's bring those true storytellers out and see how what points you're going to give this story. So the challenge was, the theme is wintertime. The challenge was to switch from summer to winter or winter to summer. And it was a story. So, Rich, in that theme, where do you give it from 1 to 5?
Well, the theme was really there from the beginning, but it sort of disappeared at the end. But it's not really fair because the challenge of changing seasons really interfered with their ability to stay on the theme. So I'm going to give them a 4. 4. Yeah.
All right. Maybe you should take a point away from me for.
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Yeah. Leona, you're there looking at that challenge. So
yeah, I'm looking at that challenge. So yeah, I could definitely see the two sides in the beginning, the summer and the winter approach. You know what I loved the most was the scene on the plane, like just putting myself on the plane, because I haven't been on a plane for more than a year now, like 18 months. And just imagining being on a plane crowded with people, like, sounded really exciting. And I would let someone throw up in my lap on a plane just to be on a plane right now. So I would say, because of that, I'm going to give them a 4.
Wow.
Because I got the hots and the colds from that.
All right. And Belinda, story,
man, like this story, the story had a lot of moments for me that I like the way it kind of snowballed and built up a lot of energy, and then the snowball kind of like hit the plateau at the end and kind of slowed down. So I think I'm just gonna stick with a 3. I'm gonna stick with a 3. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that is 11 points for the Hawaii vacation. So
good job.
All right. Well, we're in our final act now. We have 2 more stories. Belinda, you've brought a true story about wintertime. So
I have. Yes. Another perfect day in Hawaii, nay, my cousin declares matter-of-factly as she adds pesto, Spam, and Hidden Valley Ranch dressing powder to the Costco grocery list on the refrigerator door and strides out of the kitchen. Yep, so hot, I say, filling my Hydro Flask water bottle at the sink. Beach time. Auntie, what do you do when you're at the beach? Abby asks, idly browsing on her phone as she sits at the kitchen table with her high ponytail, denim shorts, and baggy thrift store surf t-shirt. Oh, walk, swim, read, generally unwind, I say aloud. To myself, I think. Grieve. Heal. Nice, she says. Do you walk every day when you're home in Seattle? Absolutely not, I say. And she looks up from her phone in surprise. Well, I walk when I can, but walking in the rain sucks, especially in the winter. It's like walking to a wall of tiny ice darts pelting you in the face. Oh, wow, she says, unimpressed. Well, good thing it's not raining today. Enjoy communing with the ocean, she says, finishing the remains of her acai bowl. 8 minutes later, I'm at Kailua Beach, once rated the #1 beach in the world, according to Dr. Beach, so I hear. As I walk up the small grassy knoll between the parking lot and the beach, the ocean emerges into sight. It's as beautiful as ever, bright and impossibly blue beneath the hot, bright sun. I unroll my straw mat onto the sand, toss down my beach bag, and sit. The beach isn't too crowded, though in the month that I've been here, it's gotten slightly more so. A young child shrieks as he hurtles himself towards the water, nearly knocking over an athletic white-haired woman who's out for a brisk stroll. Watch out! His mother yells from her Tommy Bahama chair, but she doesn't move an inch. To my left, a young man reads a novel out loud to his girlfriend. And to my right, 2 young girls in bikini lounge, blasting island reggae music from their Bluetooth speaker. I came for a week. I'll be here through the holidays, I think. It's so strange. So hot. So unlike every other winter I've known. I hug my knees and I gaze out to sea. The sky above me is bright and clear, but there are clouds gathered along the horizon. Shifting of shapes of the clouds. They change quickly with the trade winds. A dragon, a seashore, the shape of Alaska. And over there, a rainbow pours out of the bottom of one deep gray cloud. A a colorful waterfall cascading into the ocean below. A rainbow is the full spectrum of visible light refracted by water droplets, my mom explained, ever passionate about physics. The raindrops are like tiny crystals. We were sitting on her bed. She was holding up a long triangular prism to a beam of light coming through the window. I was only 8 years old, but I was captivated by the rainbow streak beaming through the prism onto the sheet of paper that she was also holding. I want to know God's thoughts, she often said, quoting Einstein. I'm not afraid to die, because when I die, I'm going to sit at God's right hand, and he's going to teach me everything about the universe, all the laws of physics. Her face would light up with delight at the prospect. She would smile. I watched the rainbow cloud move slowly across the plain of the ocean. I chuckle, imagining Mom sitting on a cloud, just like the ones that I see now. Next to the foot of some gigantic golden throne, you can only see the feet of God, but she's listening raptly to God himself, dispensing knowledge from a Bible-like physics textbook. I miss you, Mom, I think. But you'd be glad I'm here for the holidays. Your cousins took care of you when you were young, and now their family's taking care of me. And then, on my arm, a drop. A pause, and then on my bare knee, another. I look up. The clouds have coalesced above me, suddenly heavy and dark. And the rainbow that was once on the horizon has disappeared, but its rain has arrived. Around me, the families and couples hastily pack up their chairs and bags and towels and start running to their cars. I begin to do the same. And then I stop. The rain is coming in fast. I put everything into my bag, place it under my beach mat, strip down to my swimsuit, just let the rain come down. I run down the beach into the sea. All the other beachgoers flee. I stand in the shallow surf up to my waist and throw my arms out wide. I turn my face to the sky, to the clouds, giant clouds above me, and the water streams down my face. Each raindrop is like a tiny crystal, and I smile.
Thank you, Belinda.
Hey,
Thank you for coming back from Hawaii to tell us that story.
You're welcome. Thank you, Hawaii.
Yay. It's beautiful.
what are we doing out there?
It's still winter time a little bit. I didn't see what the groundhog did this year, but my groundhog tells me there's time for one more improvised story before your time ends. So, and I believe we've not yet seen Shannon and Liz. So for our final improvised story, I have a deck of cards. It is, I should credit the cards. It's Stasha Burrington's The Empty Cup Oracle. It's mostly objects. So I'm just going to pull 3 random cards from this, and you're going to have to work these into your story. So I've pulled out Slingshot. Oh, my light's too bright. Slingshot, Ancestors, and Blindfold. So we'd love you to tell us a story that works those 3 objects, Blindfold, Ancestors, and Slingshot, into it. Take it away.
Thinking back on it, it's just impossible to say exactly what happened. Like, I have a hard time really explaining everything.
Like
But I
the
guess-
memories of it are really disjointed. Like I definitely remember. I remember the biggest coat that I was wearing. it was gray and puffy and it had all the lines. And I remember finally feeling warm, but being mad that it did not match my outfit.
It came from the back of the closet. The back of the closet where, things fall that you haven't, you forgot you even bought, right? Like things like, you're like, where did this boot come from and why is there only one? But it was so deep back there and we had just run out of options at that point. So we didn't really give it a lot of thought, like this coat, it didn't match, but we needed something at that point. And we had to get out of the house. So
here's the thing. Marcia and I, we were so bored, right? I hate the snow, don't want to go anywhere in it, but after weeks of like 2 to 3 inches of snow, that being enough to like make Seattle stop moving, we had to get out.
We had done 5 puzzles. We had learned chess and we had learned Go and we had watched every tape that we had in the house back when you used to have tapes in the house.
We found the tapes and we watched them.
We watched them all. We memorized most of the Mighty Ducks. We were bored. And we were gonna leave and have an adventure. And we did.
Yeah. I think we can safely call it an adventure. It was an adventure, even if it's not all there. So here's what I remember. I remember we started walking, and then I reached in my pockets, and I found this slingshot.
We found a slingshot, and we were not sure where did this come from, right? It wasn't something I would have bought. Wasn't something Cheryl would have bought. I mean, maybe the coat was Mom's and she had bought a slingshot. I mean, Mom doesn't seem like the kind of person who would have bought a slingshot, but it was there.
It was there. And I thought, oh my gosh, finally something different, right? We've got no idea where this came from. It was like it was sent from the boredom gods. And so I thought, what's better than just throwing snow? Let's slingshot this snow.
Cheryl had this idea to slingshot the snow, so we started packing snowballs, like tight little, like hard, like ice-filled snowballs, like the smallest, hardest. I mean, they were too hard. They were too hard to throw, but we put them in a slingshot.
We did, and as we were putting them in there, it's like, when your hands get so cold, you don't even like recognize them anymore. They turn like a pink color. Both of our hands were entirely pink. And so we finally get them all packed, and we have to decide, where's our target?
So we looked at the tree.
We thought, we don't want to hurt anybody, right? We're not that bored. We don't want to hurt anybody. So we're like, oh my gosh, there's always been this giant tree that we've always been so preoccupied, right? It's super big, and there's like all these trunks, and if we were tree climbers, we probably could have climbed it, but
other people climbed it. We're not really climbers. We weren't really climbers then, but it was big. It was big. It seemed like we could hit it and nothing bad was gonna happen, we thought.
Until we hit it.
One ice-filled snowball in that slingshot. We just pulled it back. It was one of those ones that goes on your arm and you pull it all the way back and we let it go.
Snow everywhere. It started like literally like all of the week's worth of snow that we felt like was just light, just a few inches. It was all stuck in that tree.
It was coming down and it was burying everything around it, including us.
Yes, we needed to get out, but we were so preoccupied by this flooding waterfalls of snow were coming towards us.
It was an avalanche. It was an avalanche of snow.
Yes, and this is where I start to lose my memories because at that moment, at least I was fully panicked.
Full on panic. And we both went to run and I went to run and I fell flat on my face. And that's when I stopped remembering things. I mean, I don't know if I hit my head or if I just blacked it out, but I was face down in the snow. I couldn't see anything for I don't know how long. It was just nothing.
Marcia falling in the snow is still my favorite memory of that day. I can't even talk about it without laughing. It was, even though it was terrifying, it was so funny. But I tried to contain my laughter and like help her back up, but she's really disjointed.
I couldn't move. I was trapped. It was like my arms went into the snow and I couldn't move and I couldn't see anything. It was like I was blindfolded and tied up and I was trapped and there was snow falling on my back. I thought I was going to be buried alive.
But I've got my giant coat, right? So I take it off and I try and like wrap her in it and just be like, Marcia, you're safe. Like it's okay. But we have to run.
Run. Because it not only buried us, but it started burying, things around us. Cars and bikes. People were mad.
We had to like warn other people that this avalanche was coming.
We ruined the structural integrity of the tree.
Yeah. Those people who lived there when we had to go back, they were pretty mad. Like you could see like their little eyebrows furl.
I hardly remember anything after that point. We got closer to back where we live, and I just sat down on a bench, and I was like hyperventilating. I was like, you breathe really fast because you're not getting enough like carbon dioxygen. I don't know. I wasn't getting enough of anything. I was glad I could finally see. So Cheryl sits down next to me, and she's still laughing, and I'm like, what are you laughing about?
I was just so glad that we weren't bored anymore. Like this, it wasn't what we planned, but it was something different. And yes, I feel really bad for the people who were hurting it, but it was a change.
So I wanted to go home really fast, so we decided to cut through the cemetery.
The cemetery was really, really slippery.
Very slippery.
And that's when I fall.
And then I started to laugh because it just seemed like justice, right? Just like it happened to me and now it was happening to her. And she kept trying to get up, but she couldn't get up because it was so icy.
And since I fell and I'm like trying to get up, I'm still reminded of when Marcia fell. And so it's like I am laughing even though I'm like really hurting.
I don't even remember. Then I was trying to carry her back up and we're both trying to lean on each other, but it's like an ice skating rink in this cemetery. We can see our home and we kind of want to go home, but we kind of don't want to go home because it's going to be really boring again, but also it was really cold and traumatic.
Yes, but now we have these tasks to do at home, which is like nursing ourselves back to health.
So we went home and I don't know what happened to that coat.
No.
All right. Let's bring our true storytellers out for one more story judge for the ice slingshot story. Rich, where were we on the thematic scale from 1 to 5?
I put that one about, that's hard to know. I guess I'm going to stick with 4 because I like the story so much.
Oh, you're getting into Belinda's territory.
I know, but I'm a sucker for a good story. So.
All right. Leanna, the challenge was them to use in some way.
Yeah.
Literally or not. Slingshot, blindfold, and ancestors.
Yeah.
How do you felt they did?
I felt like they did great. I loved it felt real. And I loved that the slingshot shot into a tree full of snow. I loved bringing that element in because just that image of that slingshot, I know exactly what they were talking about when something hits a tree full of snow and it just starts to fall. I loved that. I loved the slingshot was one of the objects. So because of that, I'll give it 4.
Okay. All right. And Belinda, we'll give you the real story judges.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this adventure. It felt very real. And I felt like I was so into it and I loved everything about it. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
5. Wow. All right. Well, let's bring everybody out. Come on out, everybody, from your hidden places in the internet. Wherever people go.
There's Jason.
Thank you so much. I'm doing the rigorous math of adding these scores up here, and I'm done. So, but before we announce the winning story, I want to say thank you to our audience for being here, to you for
Thank
telling me
you.
the stories. I I think I said to my partner that I'm just doing the show so I can make my friends tell me stories online. And so it's been a great gift to me. Thank you for bringing the stories, true and made up. As far as the made up stories, we had Chicago coming in with 10 points. Win the Hawaii vacation with 11 points. Our winning story tonight was the ice slingshot falling down the snow with 13 points. So, congratulations, ice slingshot story. That is our winning improvised story for the night. You out there in the audience, thank you for being part of Unexpected Productions. It means a lot for us, for you to be here, for us to have a little bit of a chance to sort of connect with you, tell some stories, get to perform. I want to thank a couple of other people. Of course, Jason down there on the keys.
Yay.
Yeah. Kent
you.
Whipple, who co-directed the show. I mentioned he took
Yay.
classes, but fantastic storyteller. And out there, our community manager, Cheryl, I see her funny godmother out there. Thank you so much for helping out.
Thank you.
Genuinely appreciated. And all of our unexpected community. We miss you in person. We're happy you're here online. This show is going on Saturday nights, 7 p.m. for 11 more weeks. So, and we've got a huge set of storytellers going to be coming by.
Huge.
Yeah, I should probably tell them what the schedule is so they know when they're going to be here. So coming up soon. So thanks a lot. Different themes every week. You can see it all on our website, unexpectedproductions.org, or our Facebook page. We will see you soon. Have a good night.
Come out to Leavenworth. It's great.
Where I look for the stop streaming button.